Thank you to all the candidates for joining us for the Fargo City Commission Forum. This is hosted by the League of Women Voters of the Red River Valley. My name is Bailey Stickney. I am currently serving on the League's Board of Directors, and I will be your moderator for this forum. This forum is being streamed live and will be recorded for playback on the City of Fargo's government PEG TV channel, TV Fargo 56. This recording will also be posted to our website and our Facebook page. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. We are a membership organization open to all eligible voters. If you would like to join or learn more about us, you can do that at our website or on our Facebook page. I will take a moment right now to highlight our 2024 voter guide that can be found at vote411.org. There, you can find your polling location, you can get personalized ballot information, and compare the candidates who are seeking your vote. The guide will be published tomorrow, and I want to take a moment. Let's give this group a round of applause because they have all completed their profiles. Thank you so much. We would also like to thank the City of Fargo for providing this beautiful space and the super helpful technical assistance for this evening's event. And to all of our volunteers greeting, taking questions and rewriting them so I can read them. Really lovely group. We also have some sponsors we'd like to thank. AARP and the Hawthorne Neighborhood Association have been super helpful this round. So thank you to those two groups. Now, I've got to talk about the rules. Questions have been submitted in advance by the public, online and in person here tonight. Questions may be screened for clarity or combined with other similar questions. And we don't have unlimited time, so I might not get to every question, but we do our best. All candidates will be given an opportunity to address each question. If you in the audience think of a question, you can grab a postcard, and if you need a pen kind of at the front door, there are volunteers that can help you do that. If you have a question ready, you can raise your postcard up and someone will come grab it from you. Each candidate will have 1 minute for their opening statements, and then for each question, they'll be allowed 1 minute to respond. At the end of the question and answer period, candidates will be given another 1 minute for their closing remarks. There is a clock on the wall that you guys can watch for how much time you have left. And when it gets down to 0, there is going to be a pretty loud beep. Sorry about that, but it does help us keep people on track. You can certainly finish your sentence or your thought after that beep, but please do your best to wrap up. All right. Thank you to the audience, and we appreciate your consideration in maintaining a quiet room so that all candidates have an opportunity to answer their questions fully and in a timely manner. Now, oh yes, I also wanted to say there are 7 candidates running for 2 seats, but 2 candidates were not able to make it. That is Nathan Pullen and Michelle Turnberg were unable to make it tonight. So let's get started with opening statements. We'll start with Arlette, if you're ready. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Arlette Preston. I have been on the City Commission for the past 4 years. And prior to that, I did serve on the City Commission between 92 and 2000. I also was on the school board for 4 years, and I have a nursing background, owned a business for 16 years, and owned and operated it. It was an in-home service for the elderly. In my past 4 years on the commission, I worked on increasing transparency and responsiveness of our local government. With my efforts, the financial management of the city has become a bit more open, especially to the commission and thus to the public. And it's still being worked on. So it's a work in progress. Affordable housing has been a concern that I have been working on quite diligently. Housing prices are getting out of reach for people, whether you're renting or owning. So I'll look forward to the questions as we go along.
Thank you. John.
Thanks, everybody, for being here, and thanks to the league and to the sponsors for this opportunity to speak to the people. I'm approaching my third term. If I get through June 11th on the commission, we'd be termed out after that. That would be 8 years already, and looking for another 4 if I'm so fortunate. I had 8 years on the school board before that. When I ran in 2016, in my opinion, at that time, the biggest issue was the heroin opioid crisis, which I would say Fargo hit the ground running, and I was very involved with that. For example, there's Narcan everywhere right now. For example, we have medical assisted treatment now. These are things that didn't exist back then and that I helped champion. When I ran in 2020, my campaign slogan was, I'm going to lead the effort to settle the diversion lawsuit so we get flood protection in place. And I did that. So I look forward to delivering ongoing. There's nothing new I'll promise except that I'll do my best.
Thank you. Delson.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Delson, and thank you for having us today. I grew up in the North Fargo area, and I attended local schools. From there, I went to Concordia, and then I wrestled for the Coppers as well. After graduation, I've been in sales, law enforcement, corrections, coaching, nonprofit, and today I own 2 barbershops and a barber school in the region. I'm also an assistant wrestling coach at Concordia, and I am board president for Legacy Children's Foundation. My main core issues are workforce development, public safety, and strategic growth. I am asking for your support because I thrive on challenges, and I'm here to improve the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Johnson. Some of you might have seen my murals around town. So I've been living here in Fargo for the last 17 years. I'm an alum from NDSU. I currently serve on the Arts and Culture Commission. I have previously served on the Native American Commission. Instead of focusing on platform, I really want to highlight the perspective that I bring to the table, which is that of a blue-collar truck driving Teamster. And when you look at the agendas and the minutes of the City Commission, there are a few common themes like taxes, incentives, rezoning, infrastructure, and all that. My promise is in advocating for what is best for Fargo, and my privilege is to represent the residents of Fargo, and my responsibility is to be constantly in communication with those residents so we can grow this city in an empathetic and equitable way.
Thank you. Al.
Thank you. My name is Al Carlson. I've been a resident of Fargo for 54 years. Graduated from NDSU. I was a teacher at Agassiz Junior High for 6 years. In the summertime, I sold real estate. And in 1980, my wife and I, Sharon and I, started a construction company. First Sun Builders and then Carlson Construction. And we've been building properties around the city of Fargo ever since. I also spent 26 years in the North Dakota legislature, 10 of those years as a leader. You know, this is a job interview. I think you need to bring a skill set that I have to help lead Fargo into the future. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. All right, John, we will start with you for the questions. If you could only focus on one thing, what do you think is Fargo's greatest need at this moment?
I would say that behavioral social health issues, addiction issues, and that whole lane of getting people assistance so that we're not putting all of the burden on these challenges of people on the shoulders of our law enforcement. You know, we talk about heroin and opioids. We talk about, meth deaths. If you take those two deaths alone, the scale of them, then you add them up, we have more alcohol-related deaths in town. And I'm not saying people can't drink or whatever, but we need to be smarter and more responsible with our community culture and allow people to grow and flourish and get help when they need it and help people's children and family members when they need it. I just think this is a really pressing issue right now with the overdoses, with the deaths, with the cost to society, the cost to the families, the cost to people's personal sense of self. I just wish I had a magic wand and I could address that right now.
Thank you. Delson.
Yeah, this is one of my main core issues. So, public safety. So, I just piggyback a little bit on what John said, but I do believe there's a mental health crisis going on. And there was a consultant from Milwaukee that came here a couple months ago and talked about the Housing First Authority. And I do believe if we focus on getting them a house first and then that will help solve a lot of those issues. And because what's going on right now is a lot of those guys that are dealing with mental health, they're just going back into the jails, and then it's just revolving doors. So how do we figure out a way for them to get the help that they need, and then that way they can help out this community? Thank you.
Thank you. Anna.
Do you want to repeat the question for me?
I absolutely can. If you could only focus on one thing, what do you believe is Fargo's biggest need at this moment?
So I think that the biggest need we have is our workforce shortage. I think it's so important that we look at what we can do with some of these resources that we have available to us, but also that we need to, it's a multifaceted approach where we need to involve in the collaboration with the government, businesses, educational institutes, and the community organizations to really make that work for us. And I think investing in education is a good start, and supporting immigration and diversity can't hurt our cause, and I think with a diverse city, we really need to bolster that up and really show what we can offer here in Fargo as a community, the diversity that we have, and really help grow our workforce. I think we could do recruitment and retention strategies that we could talk with businesses about and specifically look at what we could do for them for that. That is just one idea I have.
Thank you. Al.
I don't think there's any question in my mind that public safety is really a problem. And when I listen to the news at night and find out all the different things that have happened around our community, we need to address that. It's a budget item. It's a leadership item. I don't have, as a non-commissioner, the ability to dig into the budget of the police department or how it's run or where their people are being centered. But when you see articles of businesses closing because they can't afford to have security to protect them, or a guy downtown getting his head kicked in, those are important things. Our people need to be safe in their neighborhoods. They need to be safe when they send their kids to school. They need to be safe downtown walking to a restaurant. And I think there's something amiss there. Even though the statistics say our crime is going down, I find that very hard to believe, and we need to tighten our belts, and we need to prioritize, and we need to make public safety a bigger priority.
Thank you. Arlette?
The one thing I would work on is housing, and I mentioned it a little bit in my opening statement, but housing is common to the mental health, chemical dependency issues. It's common to the homelessness issues, and certainly to workforce. So, building a new house today, it costs about $375,000 to $400,000. You add the specials on top of that, and it gets to be $450,000 to $500,000. Unfortunately, it's gotten out of reach for a lot of people. Granted, houses on the market are both new homes as well as old homes, but we don't have enough inventory for people who are in that middle income kind of segment of our population. So that's the challenge, and that's the thing that I would spend my time working on and will continue to.
Thank you. Delson, we will start with you for this next question. Some people believe that the bars should close earlier, especially on weekends, and that bartenders need better training. And some people think that there should be less regulation on businesses. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, we had our last forum. I just found out that it's 50% cheaper for liquor licenses within the downtown area. And as Anna said, and John has mentioned a few times, alcohol is a big issue. We need to, with the Liquor Board Authority, it's kind of like the Wild Wild West, where we're just giving out a bunch of liquor licenses, and it should just be a little bit more stricter on the requirements to get a liquor board or to get a liquor license. I'm all for small businesses. We just need to find out a better strategy when it comes down to the downtown scene. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna?
Yeah, I think that I'm going to say something unpopular. As you know, everybody loves drinking in our city. We're so proud of our ranking and when we're the drunkest city, you know, and some people are like, yeah, that's great. And I don't think that's something we should be super proud of when we have so many problems around that situation downtown that we're not looking at. And I do think that we could review what time the bars close. Do we need to have all of these young college-age individuals out until 2:00 in the morning on those streets? It is not these people that you see downtown that are causing the problems all the time. They're not the ones getting into the fights outside of the bar. It's the college-age kids. It's everybody who's going to have a good time. And yeah, I do think that the staff needs to be getting more trained and that we do need to have more accountability for the bartenders over serving and all of those things, because all of that is to save the children and to be safe in our community.
Thank you. Al?
You know, there's lots of laws on the books about who can buy alcohol, what are the consequences if you get picked up for DUIs and all these things. But there is a part of this that nobody talks about, and that's some individual responsibility. We cannot legislate or we cannot have an ordinance for everything. Should the police be involved? Absolutely. Should there be closer scrutiny as to who's getting these liquor licenses? And there are penalties in place. If they are violating these rules, serving to minors, over serving somebody who's already drunk, then those things, there should be consequences for that. So we need to enforce what we have, because there are plenty of laws out there already.
Arlette?
So the Liquor Control Board has actually started to implement some things that I think will help. One is background checks, regular background checks on both owners and managers. Yes, that also should include additional training, which de-escalation training has just been put in place, and it should be a requirement. I don't believe it is a requirement at this point, but it should be. You know, I think the biggest issue downtown is the density of the number of liquor licenses and liquor establishments. When you put a whole bunch of bars together, they start competing against each other. And it's easy to walk from one bar to another, and difficult then for servers and managers to keep a handle on how much people are actually taking in. So there's some things that we need to do to address that. We haven't done it at this point, but certainly something that needs addressing.
Thank you. John?
It's really good we're having this conversation. People in public health would say you're dancing around this elephant in the room. But we can't dance around it forever. And yet we need a thriving community and a thriving downtown. When I moved my business to downtown Fargo in 1997, it was dismal downtown. There was nothing. And we've had a resurgence of our downtown in a way that it's an entertainment district. And my newspaper was part of that culture, music and bars and entertainment and activities and things to do. But on the other side of that, back before Fargo emptied out, the bars were around the periphery of our downtown because the downtown was full. So we've had a really major shift that we've filled the downtown with bars. The last liquor license that came before us across the street from Commissioner Preston, I voted against it because there's bar after bar after bar. And I respect these owners. I work with them a lot. I think they're terrific investors in our community, but we need to all be responsible and look for the greater good and the health of the people.
Thank you. Anna, we're going to start with you for this next question. We do have a unhoused population here. And I think someone mentioned the Housing First initiatives and taking a look at that. Can you tell us what you see as what the city and what you as a commissioner could do to help our unhoused population?
Well, what I really see is a housing problem. That it's not a homeless problem as much as a housing problem. And I think that we have to really look at what that means. And you know, Housing First, I was here in the chambers when we had the guy from Milwaukee come in, and he had a lot of good points, statistics and research and facts. And if you can take a city like that and bring it from 200 homeless to like 17 in 3 years like he did, we can make magic happen here. I mean, we have the resources and we have the social services. Jan Eliason is doing great work already downtown. And if we can just bolster that a little bit and help grow that a little bit, I think we could really be successful in helping the homeless population and the unhoused. I do think that one of the things we really need to look at is the demographic of who those people are and what we need to do to service those individuals. Like recently, I found out that 44% of our homeless are Native Americans. What is that about? What can we do to service them, to help those people find those services?
Thank you. Al?
You know, the homeless issue is a tough one, but you have to figure out where you're going to put these people and which neighborhood. I've heard a lot of things that have come before the city, and they say, you know, everybody wants to find a place to house them until it's in their neighborhood, and then they would prefer they not be there. So there are empty buildings. The city has some responsibility, but it's a partnership. It should be a partnership between some of all of the great nonprofits we have in this town who focus on mental health, who focus on feeding the homeless, and focus on those things. The city should be partnering with those people. And if we do that, the state has programs, the cities has programs, West Fargo, we should all be working together because these people come from somewhere. They don't just come all from Fargo, they come from somewhere. And we need to get our heads together as a group and say, how do we lift them from the homeless to being a productive part of our society? And that should be our end goal when we're done. Not just provide a food and place for them to stay warm, but how do we move them out of that strata?
Thank you. Arlette?
So the last answer really leads into that whole issue of case management. We have a model in Milwaukee and what they did, and we can follow that. It's pretty well proven, as Anna mentioned. The numbers there are real impressive. One of the issues is housing inventory, for sure. We need to be able to identify places where individuals who are chronically unhoused can actually get admitted and can live in a space. Part of that could be accommodated and actually administered by the city. It's called a master lease program. That's one of the items. The other most important issue is case management, wrapping services around these individuals so that they can begin to learn to live again inside four walls. Individuals that are chronically unhoused have difficulty adjusting into that. So those are some of the issues.
Thank you. John?
When I was new to Fargo this last time, I've been here 3 times, in 1998 or so, there was an incident in Fargo that I think was a tipping point for us. On March 8th, if I recall, Hobia White Lightning, a Native American woman in town, showed up at a shelter, knocked on the door, and asked for assistance to get in. Times are different then. She was refused service, sent out into the weather, and the next day we found her frozen to death. This was a moment for us to decide we never want to ever have this ever happen again. You know, the homeless issue is one of my portfolios. I'm very close to it. Today we met with executives from the Bloomberg Institute to try to figure out how they can come and help us in Fargo. But a long story short, it's everywhere. It's every community. It's everybody. And it takes a whole community to take care of each other. You know, when we have evictions, when we have joblessness, when we have people living in poverty, when we have people battling addictions, people battling these struggles, we have to all pay attention to what's going on and give them a hand.
Yeah, I mentioned Housing First, the Housing First initiative earlier in my, I believe, first question. But as what's going on here is that we're given a plan. We're given a plan from the Milwaukee consultant that came here a couple months ago, and we can have all plans. We can have the best plans that we want, but if there's no execution, then what are we doing? As Al said, as John said, we have to figure out a way to start. I mean, we just simply have to take first step. Yes, and it does take everyone. It takes law enforcement, it takes small businesses, nonprofit, community partners, local government. Everyone has to pitch in, and that's how we do it. But once again, we can say that we're going to do something, and if nothing ever happens, what are we doing? We have the blueprint. Yes, it's easier said than done, but I do believe that we just have to simply take a first step. Thank you.
Thank you. Al, we'll start with you this round. As much as 60% of the housing stock in Fargo's older neighborhoods has been identified as in need of rehabilitation, sometimes even approaching a dilapidated state. As city commissioner, what policies and actions would you initiate to assure that Fargo's housing stock is adequately maintained?
Well, I've maintained for years that there's certain neighborhoods that we have in Fargo where the houses are 120 years old, that sometimes they're beyond fixing. And we need to address those neighborhoods. Does that mean that we go in and we purchase those homes and then tear them all down and build affordable housing in those neighborhoods? I mean, you have to look at more options than what we have, because it isn't always a matter of giving somebody a $50,000 loan to fix up a house that really shouldn't have $50,000 invested in it. So we need to address those core areas. And I think that's a perfect spot to look at over time for trying to move, because there's less cost, there's less special assessments, and it allows us to move first-time home buyers into the houses that may be even more affordable. So we need to look at those neighborhoods that have really aged, where things need to be either torn down or redone, and the city needs to work with the Housing Finance Agency out of Bismarck, with any other agencies that are willing to work with us, Fargo Housing Agency, and find plans and programs to help with that, not to give it free, but to help with it.
Thank you. Arlette?
So the core neighborhood, the housing inventory inside the core neighborhoods are truly the first home buyer kind of homes that individuals can purchase, because they tend to be works in progress. One of the things that the core neighborhood plan had identified, and we're very slowly moving into it. Talk about execution of plans. This has been taking a little too long, and that is the Housing Rehab Fund. That would be a fund that would be available for individuals to rehab a home, and I would caution against tearing down all of the homes that may look like they're becoming dilapidated. We really need to try to preserve and get in front of this instead of wait until they're so totally destroyed that it's difficult to rehab them. So the housing fund would be a major initiative to try to turn that around.
Thank you. John?
I would suggest we all look at the Roosevelt neighborhood up around NDSU. We have a declining student population. I hear as much as 77% of those bungalow-type homes, those small homes, are rentals, and they're going into a state of blight. And then we have apartments being built next to the periphery of NDSU, which further empties those houses out. What we have here is an opportunity, if we decide to look at it that way, taking all these homes, coming up with incentives and encouraging people to take over ownership, helping them rehab the homes, moving into those neighborhoods with their families and their kids, and populating the Roosevelt School and the Horseman School up there. That's good neighbor policy. The other side of that is, if we don't address this blighting neighborhood, what are we going to end up with in a while? It's really not pretty, so, and then we're going to have, we just need to, and we get to, and we can show people how to do that.
Thank you. Delson?
Yeah, you look at Roosevelt, you look at Jefferson, you look at Golden Ridge. I grew up in the Golden Ridge neighborhood, and speaking of the core neighborhood plan, I mean, that was one of the biggest issues they had, is preventive care and maintenance. So how do we we're giving all these incentives to these new houses, and that's fine too. But why don't we give them to these older neighborhoods and help build them up? And also, if you look at the Golden Ridge and if you look at the Jefferson community, you realize a lot of them are new Americans, and they come from all different places. Some of them just may not know what's going on. So this is a good way for us to educate them and then give them the resources for them. Because my dad's been here for 30 years and he still, I mean, his English is all right, but for the most part, I don't think he really understands what's really going on and what resources he has to fix up his place. So if we really went in there and facilitated and give them the resources and educate them, I think a lot more people would understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna?
Jesus, by the time it gets to me, I forget what the question was.
Yes. As much as 60% of the housing stock in Fargo's older neighborhoods has been identified as in need of rehabilitation and sometimes even approaching a dilapidated state. As a city commissioner, what policies and actions would you like to see to assure that Fargo's housing stock is adequately maintained?
Well, I think supporting incentives for some of this, revitalizing these core neighborhoods is important because it can stimulate the growth and the community development. And also it helps with attracting investors to our area, right? And also creating jobs. It can revitalize those communities that we're talking about that really need it. And it's essential. It's essential for our city to consider these design and implementations of incentives. But it's also important that we ensure that they're cost effective and they align with our beliefs.
Thank you. Arlette, we will start with you for this round. The past couple years, if everyone remembers, have been kind of dry and smoky, and there's been fires to the north of us. Luckily, we haven't had fires break out here, but we have some folks that are worried about our fire planning. And tell us, what are your thoughts?
About our fire planning? Is that...
Do we have any extreme fire disaster mitigation plans? Is there a planned fire break to the west? Do we think we have enough pumping power to bring extra water into the fire plug system? This is from a person who grew up in a fire prone state. So we should probably talk to them. Maybe I don't.
Yeah. Well, we've had some dry years, so I understand the question. I think from a fire prevention, firefighting perspective, the fire department has taken a real aggressive stance in making sure that we do have the water pressure, as well as the engineering and the water department staff. We're building new water towers when we need them, and pumps put in the system to assure that pressure is there when we need it. The fire department has actually been recognized, I think, pretty highly for the response that they have. I think it's 7 minutes or something like that. And they are really close to meeting those goals. I think it's less than 7 minutes, actually. So from the firefighting side, I think we're really pretty good.
Thank you. John?
When this question surfaced, my head went to public health and to personal health. People who have COPD and have trouble with breathing and so on. But it's it's more than that. And it's good to hear from somebody who's been through that, because one thing we understand in Fargo is how to prepare for a flood. But we don't know how to prepare for some of these other things because we don't have that regular experience with it, like bad quality air where you go outside and you're hacking and you can't breathe it, type stuff. But I'll say a couple things that might not be real popular. This is climate change stuff to a degree also, and nobody wants to say those words. Part of why I fought for the diversion settlement was we have to be prepared for floods. and we were going to be tied up in court and not have a project if we didn't get past that federal lawsuit. You know, when droughts, right now we were bringing water in from the western part of the state to counter the dry spells. Air quality is going to be another one of them. These things all tie to climate. We have to take and make it climate a priority for the people's sake.
Thank you. Delson.
Bailey, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. This person is way smarter about fires than I am. Do we have any extreme fire disaster mitigation plans, or do you have plans, should you be elected? Is there a plan for a permanent fire break to the west? Is there enough pumping power to bring extra water into the fire plug system? Can we be sure the extra water access will be available in the future for extreme heat and dry periods?
Those are deep questions. So I do not have enough knowledge in that area, but as a, if I was elected, I believe that let's all sit down at the table and let's figure this question out together. So just showing humility. I don't know everything, but this is where we come in as the citizens and the leaders, and we make sure we figure something out if this is an issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna?
Yeah, I wish I had a good answer for that, right? Like, I think in this day and age and in the state we live in, that we have climate and environmental issues every day. Like, you look at the weather we're having and the winter we're not having, or the rain we're getting a lot of that's great or not getting. And the fires in Canada are real. We're really close to that. So it is something that we should have a plan for. And I do think that is something to have a conversation about. And like he said, I don't have all the answers either. And I would like to sit down and have some of those conversations with the fire chiefs and kind of get to an understanding of what we can do to prevent these huge disasters in our city.
Thank you. Al?
Now that the diversion's being built, I think our biggest concern should be what happens if we do have this drought and the Red River is almost dry. Because that's where our water supply comes from. We get some through the Cheyenne that we get pumped over, and that Ashtabula is our reservoir. When I was in the legislature, we put the first dollars in at the state level for the Red River water supply. So if there's anything that should be a major concern for us, it should be to make sure that that continues to be available to us so that we can get that water supply to the valley when we need it, when we are in those drought conditions. I remember when Dennis Wallaker came to the state, and he said, we need two things. We need diversion and we need water. I said, which one do you pick? He said, I want the diversion. Well, the second one didn't go away in its importance. It's very important to Fargo. We need to keep our eye on the ball there to make sure that gets completed so we do have the water when it's time to fight those fires.
Thank you. John, we'll start with you this round. Recently, the High Plains Fair Housing Center reported that patterns of racial segregation are in Fargo neighborhoods. And they also noted that segregated communities are often targeted by slum landlords and underserved by public amenities such as parks, and they often get trapped in a cycle of segregation. As city commissioner, what policies and actions would you initiate to prevent patterns of racial segregation here?
I was the one who put that on the agenda, to have Michelle Ritz from the High Plains Housing share that information with us. And I'll couch it with the overview. We're a changing, evolving community. 90-some languages spoken here in our community. And then we have pockets of, like you're mentioning, the pockets of people. Where my head went when I was hearing that information first presented at the Human Rights Commission was relative to one person, one vote. We're in an ongoing discussion about what type of government would be ideal for Fargo in the moment, present, and future. Is it a commission form of government or a council form of government? If you have a council form of government, you have wards and districts. In my head, if that's the issue, we have pockets of demographics that won't otherwise get elected at an at-large election, but could in their neighborhood. I think that's a compelling reason to study wards and districts as a future form of government.
Thank you. Delson.
Yeah, I mean, as we continue to grow, we can do mixed unit development. I keep talking about the older neighborhoods, the Jeffersons, the Golden Ridge neighborhoods, but if you take a walk through there, and my parents live in the Golden Ridge neighborhood, and I was just there last week, but you do see a lot of there are a lot more older homes. Some are blighted, but just moving forward, mixed unit developments, and if this may be a little tough for some people, but a renter registry could be another option. And it'll be tough for some landlords, but that's where we set the precedent. Like, hey, this has to happen. Otherwise, we're going to keep having this segregation going on within the city. And yes, it's going to be tough at first, but anything new is a little tough at first, and you just move on. So, thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
So recently we had a forum with the Builders Industry Association, formerly the Home Builders Association. They just changed their name. And one of their questions was kind of like this, and it brought up inclusionary zoning, which really promotes the socioeconomic diversity within the neighborhoods. And especially now that we're seeing this segregation that we're seeing, that this could help promote some of that, to stop some of that segregation. And I think we need to look at that. And also, some of these unpopular things that people are talking about, like with the registering the landlords and stuff, I think it's important that we hold landlords accountable for the raising the rates for the renters and keeping things affordable for the people who don't have houses. I don't know what the percentage is of people who aren't homeowners, but it's a lot more than there is of homeowners. And so we really need to take a look at that system and hold everybody accountable for it.
Thank you. Al?
You'd have to repeat that question for me, please.
Yes. Recently, the High Plains Fair Housing Center reported that patterns of racial segregation are here in Fargo neighborhoods. They also noted that segregated communities are often targeted by slum landlords and underserved by public amenities like parks. And this just cycles and gets worse and worse. As city commissioner, what policies and actions would you initiate to prevent these patterns?
I don't know. I know there's neighborhoods where there's different ethnic groups living in those neighborhoods. Maybe they want to live there because they want to be near people who speak the same language, who have the same values as they do. But landlords should always be held responsible for their actions and what they do. On the other hand, you can't also tell them and have rent controls and say you can't charge more than X amount of dollars, because pretty soon they're just going to abandon the project if they can't have a reasonable return on their investment. So again, you need to encourage instead of discourage. You need to talk assimilation to our society, to our city, and hopefully those kind of things will make some of these problems go away. It's a big issue. It's not an easy answer, but it's one we need to look at, keep our eye on the ball, make sure they're treated fairly, just like every other citizen in the city of Fargo.
Thank you. Arlette.
Yeah, the data that Michelle presented was quite concerning in that this has happened in the last 3 decades, and it was a very clear progression. We really need to try to get in front of this before we find ourselves in a much worse situation. I truly can't sit here and tell you what should be done to stop it, but I do think, and some of the points being brought up here, point towards needing more information. We need to find out, are individuals choosing to live in a certain apartment building, or are they being directed towards that building? And I know I've had stories told to me by friends that those apartment buildings, they need some maintenance that haven't been followed through on. So if we let this continue, we're going to be in a situation where people are in very vulnerable, inadequate housing. So we need to sit down and figure out how to address that.
Thank you. Delson, you will take this next one first. And this gives you the opportunity to talk a little bit more about this rental registry that a couple of you brought up. As city commissioner, would you support a rental registry for all multifamily rental units in the core neighborhoods?
Yes, listen. And Elle said that it'll discourage some people, but then we're having these issues and nothing's getting fixed. I mean, there are many slumlords out there, and if we don't have, I don't think it would discourage them. We can, as long as we give them an opportunity to voice out their opinions as well, we can all come to the table and work together. But if we don't do anything for the citizens that has these slumlords, then what are we doing? I know plenty of friends that has property out there, and once again, with any new changes, there's going to be a little pushback. But if we don't do anything, then we're not helping out the community as well.
Thank you. Anna?
So one of the things that I'm hearing with with the comments that we're getting back from these answers is naiveness. Racism exists. Okay, racism exists in our city, and we need to stop acting like it doesn't. If we don't hold these landlords accountable, it will never change, ever. Period. Point blank. Period. Like, I do not know why we're even having this conversation when we all know what the problem is. Racism exists in our city, and we need to stop acting like it doesn't. The color of your skin matters, and where you live matters. And yes, like Al said, they could be because they want to live together. Wouldn't you rather live with other people that care about you and your community because they look like you? But is that a forced situation because they can't afford to live somewhere else because of the slumlords, because of the racism? We cannot be blind to something we see every day.
Thank you. Thank you. Al?
You know, I don't have enough information to tell you when you look at police reports or if you look at the condition of buildings from the building inspection department, who is not taking care of their properties? Are they overcharging on their rent? Are they not properly taking care of the tenants when they have concerns? Those are the kind of things you need to look at. I'm not sure I agree that Anna says how racism is such a great problem. Maybe it is, and maybe it's in certain neighborhoods, but most of the people that I deal with that have apartment buildings and things are very glad to have good quality tenants. And if they can pay the rent, they don't have problems with that. So I'd need a lot more information before I would telling you that we have an instant solution for this. Do we have a lot of slumlords? I'm not sure about that. I don't think so, but there might be some, and those bad actors have to bring their buildings up to code and deal with those kind of things. And if they're not being good actors, we've got to fix it.
Thank you. Arlette?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. As city commissioner, would you support a rental registry for the multi-family rental units?
Yes, in fact, I introduced the topic probably about 2 years ago, and it got voted down. Yes, there are definitely slumlords in town, and yes, we do have inadequate, unsafe housing situations that really need to be watched much more closely, and that's what a rental registry program would do. It also establishes a standard that's a little bit higher probably than what we're currently seeing, and Grand Forks has a rental registry program in place, and they saw just an automatic increase in the standard of the housing just because of the registry program existence. And that was without any kind of strong enforcement. It was just talking about it, raised the expectations. So it is an effective way to deal with. And a lot of these are single-family homes that are being converted into multifamily, and the city doesn't even know that they exist.
Thank you. John?
Commissioner Preston did advance this proposal to the city, and she and I were the only two who voted for it. And I'll qualify this further. Not much later, or maybe around that time, the North Dakota legislature came very close to preempting cities from having rental registries. The legislature in Bismarck, saying Fargo shouldn't be able to do this. You know, there was an immense pushback from the notion of rental registries. Let's qualify this. Almost 60% of our population lives in apartments. You know, so if we need to watch out for their conditions they're living in. We need to watch out and pay attention to, are their landlords delivering what they say they will? Is it affordable? Is it reasonable? There's just a real need for tracking the safety and the health and the space that people are living in. And we've done this for dilapidated homes. We've sent our inspection department after old homes to tear them down. We need to do the same similarly to step up the safety in our apartments and require it.
Thank you. Anna, we'll have you start this round.
I'll take a nice, easy question, please. Thank you.
This one is a little bit easier. Well, maybe not. People have really good questions. I'm really glad. I'm so happy that so many people are invested in this city. And again, thanks everyone for sending these questions and for showing up here and viewing at home. This is still on our track of housing. Apparently that's an important topic. This is more about the sidewalks and transportation. A lot of the sidewalks are just, especially in certain neighborhoods, are just crumbly and not super safe, especially for folks that aren't fully able-bodied and maybe need to use wheelchairs or other devices. What are your thoughts? What can we do for transportation and safe walking?
Well, I think we need to invest in that stuff for sure. And our transportation system we have here is great. We need to invest in it more so it's better, right? So that we can get access to more places. Now that our city is growing, we need to be able to invest in more bus drivers. And this is one of those things that's a little bit closer to my heart because I used to be a city bus driver. That's kind of where I started. So I kind of see, like, we started off small and we've grown so much and we've done so much and we can keep growing and getting better. So I think transportation is almost there. We just need a little bit more. And with the sidewalks, there's a lot of problems there. And I think we need to really go and look at what those look like and like do a whole city assessment on that. Because if we're requiring new builds to build sidewalks and curbs and all of that, then we really need to be looking at the old neighborhoods and making sure they're up to code and safe and for people with wheelchairs and people who need to walk. And our population doesn't all drive. And we need to really take that into consideration when we think about stuff.
Thank you. Al?
I remember the debates where do we have city sidewalks on both sides of the street or do we have it on one side of the street and make it more accessible for people? I can tell you that a lot of the parts of town, they've redone all the curbs and they put in the handicap accessible. There's a dip in that sidewalk so that it's easier for them to get across the street. We always want to make sure that we make Fargo a safe, walkable city. And whether it be with a wheelchair or walking, that costs money. Then we have people saying, well, gosh, don't put it on my specials. You know, I'd really like it, but I don't put it on my specials. But somebody's got to pay for it. So, yes, we should continue to make sure that our mass transit is done so that people are actually riding it and it's getting them to the places they want to be and the times they want. And is it safe for me to walk on those streets and curbs? If it's a bad sidewalk with uneven concrete, the city should step in and take care of things like that and make sure it's done. Somebody has to pay, and it'll probably be specials.
Thank you. Arlette?
I'm going to answer this question in a slightly different way and talk about the whole issue of walkability. Yes, sidewalk maintenance is an important part of that. There is attempts in the community here as we're going through a growth planning process. And with that, we're talking about what makes an ideal neighborhood. An ideal neighborhood is one that's safe and healthy, promotes healthiness, and active transportation, whether it be walking, biking, skateboarding, whatever, is a large part of that. So having sidewalks that are maintained well is part of that, but also the design of the neighborhood. A person should be able to walk to the grocery store and get groceries if they need to, at least a carton of milk. Should be able to go to a coffee shop and meet a friend. So those are the kinds of things that we're talking about working into new neighborhood design, but we also need to incorporate that into the older neighborhoods as well. So yes, sidewalk maintenance is an important part of that.
Thank you. John?
I hear the voice of Bruce Brovold, and I hear the voice of Keith Bjornson. These are two advocates we had who reminded us on an ongoing basis for years pay attention to those of us who can't get down the sidewalks. In winter, we have moments places where there's snow removal, there's no snow removal. They go to the events downtown at the Fargo Theater, they can't park and can't get into the sidewalk. We're just not cognizant of what challenges people who are facing disabilities and ability issues are, what they face. So it's in my head, this is just, I lived in Rochester, New York. One time I moved away from North Dakota, I lived in Rochester, and they get a lot of snow, and they did something pretty phenomenal there. Every time there was snow, there's army of people would come out and clean every single public sidewalk in the city. That was really something for the people who had mobility issues and needed to use those sidewalks. I wish we could do that here, but at a minimum, hold them responsible, make them shovel their sidewalks and repair them for those who need them.
Thank you. Delson?
Bailey, can you repeat that question?
I sure can. A lot of our sidewalks, especially in some of the older neighborhoods, are crumbling. There's also not always the best transportation for folks that don't have a car or need to use wheelchairs and other mobility aids. What are your plans to help out with those things that people need?
Yeah, as John was saying, we definitely have to focus on those old neighborhoods and make sure that everyone has an ability to get to the bus stops and have well-maintained sidewalks. But it comes down to who's going to pay for it. And most likely it's going to come from special assessments. So if they're okay with it, let's get to it. But once again, someone has to pay for it. And I'm all for improving those old neighborhoods. It's just that we're going to have to pay for it, probably through special assessments. So thank you.
Thank you. Oh, trying to time this right here. Let's move to closing statements. Did I start with you, Anna, this last time?
Yes.
Al, would you please hit us with your closing statement?
Well, again, thanks for having us here. This is a job interview for 2 spots open on the city commission. I think I have the skill set between what my leadership skills and the business skills that I've developed over the years to be a good city commissioner. I'm a problem solver. I'm also a budget hawk. I spent a lot of years making sure that billion-dollar budgets were balanced and they were scrutinized. And I think that's important because there was a lot of programs tonight talked about, a lot of things talked about that cost money. How are you going to pay for them? Those are the kind of tough questions you have to ask. I will create good public policy, make good decisions, and I'll also make sure I'm a good steward of your freedoms, not only your freedoms, but your checkbook. Things will balance. We have a great city. I want to be part of it. I have the time, the energy, and the ability, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to help take Fargo into the future and making some of these things that were talked about realities and to scrutinize and be good stewards for our citizens.
Thank you. Arlette.
First of all, I want to thank the League and AARP and Hawthorne Neighborhood Association for hosting this. I just want to say, with my public and private experience, I'm well prepared to serve for another 4 years. And the city is really right in the middle of a number of large initiatives, which will require some seasoned leadership. I'm running for re-election to bring all those initiatives to their completion and implementation. Also, personally, I am a mother, a nurse, former business owner, and experienced community leader. I'm ready to continue to work on these initiatives that are so important for our community. I am asking for your support, for your vote, and if you want some more information, you can go to arletteforfargo.org, all spelled out. And again, thank you for coming, for listening in, and thank you for hosting.
Thank you. John.
Again, thanks to the League and all your partners for putting this on. And nobody should think this is fun and easy. It's really nerve-wracking to do this type of a job interview. I'll start with it's incredibly humbling to serve the people, and that's our job. is to serve the people. I grew up in a little town, and I tell folks my best example of leadership was at home. A good leader to me is a mom who can tell 7 kids, you're not going to fight at the dinner table. And they don't even dare fight at the dinner table. A good leader is somebody who sees opportunity and future for everybody. Lots of mothers do that. When my mom was mayor of my hometown of Crystal, she ran it like a family. She treated everybody like family members, and there's something to that. So, last thing I'll say is, everywhere we look lately, people are fighting. There's fight in their eyes. There's fight in every discussion. I wish I could emulate my mom and just let's put the fight aside and go forward.
Thank you. Delson.
Yeah, first of all, just thank you for having us and thank you for posting this, or thank you for hosting this. I love what Elle says all the time. And this is a job interview, and this is the time to pick 2 best candidates. But let's take a step further. A lot of us have great plans, but what happens is that there's no execution. And that's where I feel that I've excelled a lot in my leadership opportunities I've been given. And secondly, as John was saying, this is not easy, but I also encourage, this is for next election, but I encourage everyone to go out there and I've been told, this is courageous that you're doing this, but no, there's plenty of people that are smarter than me, there's plenty of great leaders out there. Next election, go out there, put your name, but yes, vote for me on June 11th. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna.
So thank you everybody. Thanks for everybody being here and all of our hosts and the league. Representation matters, and it matters because it validates people's existence and their experiences. It fosters inclusivity. It challenges stereotypes. And it provides role models for individuals who may feel marginalized or underrepresented. And when people see me, I don't think they immediately think truck driver. But what I hope they think is Anna Johnson loves Fargo and wants to see it thrive. I'm proud to be the first Native American to run for City Commission. And I hope to represent a previously underrepresented population of Fargo as their newest Fargo City Commissioner, and thank you so much.
Thank you. This concludes our forum for tonight. Thank you so much to these candidates for running and participating in democracy in this way. We absolutely need folks like you to do this. I also want to thank everyone who showed up here tonight, and I know lots of folks are watching at home, and thank you for paying attention to us in your living rooms and your kitchens. And again, our volunteers, very, very well done, everyone. Thank you so much. And our sponsors, AARP and Hawthorne Neighborhood Association. Again, thank you so very much. June 11th, don't forget to vote. You can find your polling location or a polling location at vote411.org. That will be published tomorrow. And again, thank you to all of these candidates for filling out the questionnaire. I'm truly really proud of you, and thank you so much for getting that done. Make sure you vote June 11th. I know it's kind of, it's the primary, but that's also when these local races get decided is in the primary. So June 11th is when we need to vote. This concludes our forum tonight. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.